What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Comics and Chronic. We got a guest on today's episode. Unfortunately, Cody couldn't make it. It's me. It's Jake FH, who you know and love, hopefully. Not more than me. But today we have artist Scott Koblish. He's done work for Marvel, DC, a book we're going to talk about that just came out on 420, actually. We really wanted to talk about this one. It's from Image Comics. It's called The Secret History of the War on Weed, written by Gerry, Duggan, and Brian Posehn. And yeah, so Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So I hear, are you based in LA?
I am. I live in North Hollywood.
Okay, nice. I'm in Culver City.
Oh, okay. I used to live in Rancho Park, which is right next to Culver City.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. It's very close.
Yeah. So it's on the other side of Pico, I think.
Yeah.
Culver City is a funny town because they own a couple. Well, not own, but the town has a couple of these little spurs that go into the rest of LA where they just slam like a Costco or some big box store, and then they reap in the taxes from that. But the traffic is all in Venice.
Oh wow, that's a weird little
have you ever looked at the city limits on Culver City? It's fascinating. Looks like a big block with octopus legs all around it. So.
That sounds like some Chinatown conspiracy theory going on.
If you look at the map, you're just like, well, that little spur just leads to the Costco, and I wonder why it stops at the Costco.
Yeah. That's actually really cool. I didn't know that. It's a funny.
Yeah. That's funny.
So I want to ask right away: Are you a stoner at all?
So I was when I was younger. Now that it's legal, I've had it a whole bunch of times, and people I know partake of it all the time. So honestly, if you talked to me when I was 18, absolutely. Yeah. When I was 25, I just sort of lost the habit, and then now that it's legal here in California, it's I'll have a tincture or I'll have a gummy or smoke some. It's strange to talk about it just because for me, I'm older than probably you guys, and it was super illegal. So it was so are you a murderer? The question, what it used to be. But now it's just would you like to have a beer? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have a beer? I guess, yeah. So it's just kind of it's a big sea change, for my generation. And I think I'm really grateful that my kids' generation doesn't have to deal with it,
Oh, nice. That's true. So you have kids now. I
do have a child. Yeah, I have a child. Sure. For me, like I said, even part of the impetus of this book, The Secret History of the War on Weed, was, I had friends that were, one guy, they were brothers. One guy is a nuclear physicist, and the other struggles to get jobs at Walmart. And the only difference between the two of them was that one of them got picked up, caught by the cops way back. He wound up in jail for a while. He came out angry and really struggling to find work, and that was only just because of, honestly, his rap sheet at that point, which was pointless because, like I said, his brother was just the same as him. It's just he didn't get caught, into the web of madness that making, something like this illegal became a big problem for him. So for me, it's kind of personal on that level. I really did not like what it did. It was like a meat grinder for people's lives. And I'm super grateful that like I said, I live in North Hollywood and practically every other store is a dispensary.
Yeah.
I can walk out of my door and before I get to the grocery store, I've got 2 dispensaries,
Yeah.
So it's great. I'm super happy that it's there. Honestly, a lot of these stores were just abandoned stores with nobody in them before they were weed stores. So yeah, for me, it's kind of personal in that I didn't really like what Prohibition did to the culture and to the country and the people that were friends of mine. So as far as me being a stoner, it's like having a beer every couple times a month, you know what I mean? So, but I absolutely understand the benefits of it, and it really does help to ease everyone's anxiety and make a nice day out of it. you'll go to a bar and there'll be a fight somewhere at some point at the bar. But honestly, like if it's a lounge where like people are getting stoned, I've never seen a fight at anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stoners aren't going to fight. Like to your point, I feel like, especially like out here with the dispensaries, it does feel like it's one of the like few, I don't know, I don't want to say revitalization because it's definitely not revitalized, but for lack of a better word, revitalization of like the mom and pop shops.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like really big ones like MedMen.
Yeah, you have MedMen, which just sucks. I'm not ashamed to say it. I don't like MedMen.
But there's a ton of mom and pop shops, like you said. And even before it became legal for everything outside of medicinal use, like medicinal use was like really tiny shops.
Yeah.
Which was fascinating because that was the stuff where like you could go in and talk to people who were really earnest about it, knew a lot about it. You know, all these bud players know a ton of stuff about what they do and how they. When I was a kid, I wouldn't have been able to answer the difference between sativa and indica.
Yeah, exactly.
No idea. And then to find out, like, you know, there's different strains within all of that and hybrids and then like potencies, and it's kind of like buying like wine.
Yeah, exactly.
You go in and they're just like, well, this is the varietal of grape. And this is a red wine, this is a white, this is a mix, a rosé. You know, you get all these different things, and it's fascinating to me because it went from kind of being a black box, you never knew what you were going to get, to being something that has, you know, some measure of control, some measure of, you know, you can if you have a high that you're looking for, something that's not paranoid or not like, you know, you can get something that fits along those lines. And especially if you just talk to your bud tender, they'll be more than happy to lead you in a particular direction. There's a ton of small businesses essentially that are up and down the coast that are just trying to, you know, they'll say like, here's the tincture that we made, or here's the gummy that we make, and you know, it's all packaged, and it's almost impossible to open little bags, but like
yeah, those things are impossible, honestly.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that like you know, once you find out, you're like, oh, okay, I can totally get how to open this now, but it's kind of like a dumb ape trying to open them. But
just ripping the whole thing open, just like I think I broke a couple Ziplocs.
Oh,
like,
dude,
whatever, I need them.
Sometimes I buy pre-rolls and they come in this like child-proof like thing, and it's just really fucking hard to get open. So I'll just like pry it open because it's really difficult.
Like
I also have like little stubby fingers, so I can't really quite get it.
I have a running joke with my wife that she'll ask me to open something, and I'll be like, "But do you want to close it again?" Anything, it's just I can't necessarily like close it once I've torn it open.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
That's good.
So I thought something really cool about this comic was that, and it says when you get to the end of the comic that the proceeds from the comic are going to charities that help people that have been like affected by like cannabis related. I'm wording it. I'm trying to remember the exact wording. Charities working to free cannabis prisoners.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, we had a resource page at the end that had a whole bunch of people that you can donate to. They're charities that I kind of trust. And, you know, they help people out for all of this stuff. Like now that it's legal, that pot is legal, like it's ridiculous that there are people still rotting in prison over
Absolutely.
it. So there's a charity that I'm going to donate, because each one of us are going to donate 10% of our proceeds to one of the charities that we kind of like best. I'm going to donate to the Last Prisoner Project, and I forget which ones Brian and Gerry are doing, but it's along those lines. And for me, that charity is really great because, you know, it does help people out. You know, there's just zero reason that these guys have to be rotting away in jail, especially if they're not like a violent offender.
Yeah. If all I did was sell weed, they should just be out.
Yeah, sell weed or get caught with it, you know. So like, and I would love for it not to be a felony, like a federal crime anymore. The House has passed to legalize it countrywide, and the Senate would be next. If you live in a state where anybody who's listening, if you live in a state where your senator's on the fence, because it does cross party lines. You know, people think that the drug war is ridiculous on all sides of the politics. If you have a senator that you think you can reach and get them interested in like signing or voting for it, you know, please do, because I don't think it'll come up in the next session of Congress, and it might be longer. You know, it might take another 5 to 20 years for it to come up again. So it's great that it passed the House. So yeah, we're donating 10% of the proceeds, you know, the profits from the book to those charities. So and it's really important to have done that, because it was something that we were thinking about for quite a while.
That's cool. Nice. That's really cool.
And that's really cool. Like, you know, it's just another incentive to even buy the comic if you haven't already. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I literally bought 2 copies. I was like, ooh.
Oh, that's awesome. That's nice.
But now I'm not knowing that. So now that I did that, now I just feel like a better person. So
you are a better person.
What part of the country are you in?
I'm in New York.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So
when we pushed to get the book out, there was a lot of like, I was sending postcards to different stores and saying like, you know, if you can, like, grab a hold of this comic. Not every state has it legalized, so I was kind of careful about the stores, or at least when I would contact them about the stores that would have it. It's not. You can read the comic without being a stoner, like totally, like it's no problem at all. And the main character that we have in it is we're going to use them in other things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but it really does help to have, and that's why we put it out on 420. We kind of worked backwards. We knew that there was a release date of 420, and then we just started putting our heads together to try and figure out what the story would be. So
nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so funny.
So the idea was just like 420 and then go from there.
Yeah, like there's a 420, like you know, Gerry came to me and he's like, "Did you know that there's a 420 release date?" And I was like, "No way," you know. And he was like, "Yeah, you think we could do something with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we looped Brian in, and then just sat down and talked about it, and I went through it. It happened really quick. We started it in like, I want to say like late December, talking about it, and then by like January I started. By March I was done with it. So
wow,
it's a really fast turnaround. But I was proud of that. You know, it looks great. I'm really happy with the work, and the colors is fantastic. Hi-Fi. Over in Arizona, they're just amazing. So I've had really good luck with them. They first colored over my stuff when I was working with George Perez on Legion of Free Worlds, and I've loved their work ever since. And Brian and Christy are just wonderful people. So
I have a question about Scotch McTiernan.
Yeah.
Scotch McTiernan.
Was he in any way? Because he cut to me when I was reading it. He looks like a combination of Guile from Street Fighter, and then he kind of seems like, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Death Blow?
A little, yeah. I remember that comic. It was a comic, right?
Yeah, it was a comic. It was a Jim Lee like fire from his Firestorm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's kind of like a spec ops soldier also. So when I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's cool. It kind of and so I was wondering if any of those two were an inspiration as far as his look or his feel.
Yeah, we were just kind of looking for commando kind of you know, secret ops like soldier kind of guy, and we just ran from there. It was actually, he was blonde for a little while when we were thinking about it, and then it's like, I don't see enough gingers out there.
Yeah.
So let's put something in there for them, and it was just it was fun to do, like. And then, of course, the team of the motley crew of team that he has to fight, you know, halfway through the book, like those are all like 80s kind of like characters, like pastiches of you know, trends or things that I would see in the popular culture back then. So that was just kind of fun to name check that kind of stuff and play around with it, like. And then what was interesting is I would throw out an idea, like a silly idea, and then I'd think about it for a little while, and then I'd go, oh, you know, I can probably tie this character in a little tighter with another one. And then, you know, I'd send my notes to Gerry and Brian, and then they would come back with some more suggestions or change in dialogue, and that would make it really kind of sing. It was a very collaborative process, and I really enjoyed working on it. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I do appreciate the silliness of it because, like, I just, you know, as soon as I saw the title, as soon as I saw that cover, I was like, I need this comic. And then, I thought it might even be like just like a history book in a way, like, because the word history is there. I'm like, all right, this is good. I'm going to learn something here, but it's not, but not in a bad way. Right. Like, you still get that message across, like, you know, when Scotch McTiernan is going to just like invade the farm where they're growing weed, basically, you know, you get that moment where it's like, why are you doing this to us? He's like, the government's telling me. He's like, you know, like, it's like there's still those moments where you get those, you know, those real moments, I guess I want to call it, surrounding all this silliness, which I really loved about the comic.
Well, that's where Brian and Gerry and I kind of excel. Like, we come up with tremendous goofiness, and then what I found when we were working on Deadpool was just that it's a lot of fun to kind of, you make them laugh a whole bunch and then you hit them with a gut punch. It's kind of like when you're watching a good concert, like, you know, the band will come out and they'll just like hit you with like a whole bunch of rockin' tunes. And then like at some point the concert cools down a bit and they hit you with something hard, like emotionally, you know, and that's kind of what I like to do in comics as well. Like, I find that very few people even bother with comedy, like, or jokes. Like, it's not, especially in superhero comics or action comics, like, it's just kind of not done. And I find the whole genre kind of silly, which is great. I mean, like, it's not, I don't dismiss it. I think it's just kind of fun and silly. So for me, like, it was really important, especially the last like 3 pages where we did, you know, Scotch in prison, you know, that kind of stuff was super important to me to put in there for some sort of context and for some way for us to talk about just the pointlessness of the war on drugs, and how it just destroyed people's lives. But I kind of figured like most people kind of know that by now. So I kind of was like, you know, let's like play around with this and have fun with it so that like it's an entertaining story, you know, about a guy who's kind of driven and then has a turn and then is kind of driven in the other direction. You know what I mean? So
I was just going to say, I do love when Scotch meets Weed Thing. Weed Thing's my new favorite comic book character.
Weed Thing, we're going to do more things with Weed Thing. I think.
Oh, yes. Hell yes.
We're talking plans for next year with Weed Thing, because Weed Thing is a blast. Thought about doing some shirts with Weed Thing on it.
Sign me
but
up.
Yeah, it's just a blast. I love that guy. And yeah, we're going to do all sorts of fun things with him. I don't want to spoil any of it, but it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, once we land, Weed Thing came in really late. Like there was a whole section in the middle there, where I was going to go into like a history of you know, prohibition in America, dating back from like the 1920s and 30s, and when, you know, marijuana was illegalized, and why, you know, the racist kind of angle that there was going on with it, and then I was sitting down to do it, and then I just wanted to check in with Gerry. I was like, hey, I'm getting to this section. Like, what do we want to say here? And he was like, well, Brian and I were talking about our character named Weed Thing. And then I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what we need here. It was just a big psychedelic like freak out. And I was like, that's so much fun to draw. And the colorist like jumped in with like both feet. Like, so it's a really fun sequence. I love Weed Thing a lot.
That's funny.
Is Weed Thing supposed to look like somebody?
No, he's kind of got like a long beard and like freaky hair, and he's just kind of like a hippie kind of dude. So like I didn't have anybody in mind like a Jerry Garcia or something like that. But like, it's kind of along those lines, you know, where the guy is just like he's been mellow for a very, very long time.
Jerry Garcia also, like, if you didn't know who Jerry Garcia was and someone was like, picture your typical stoner, like Jerry Garcia, even if you know what I mean, like he looks like a stereotypical stoner, like that look. So yeah.
So that was really like the fun of doing weed thing. Is that, and then of course the more I thought about it, the more I could put like buds in his beard and in his hair, and like it was just kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Play around with lines and
like a tree beard from Lord of the Rings.
yeah, exactly. So only with like marijuana. So
I think tree beard would smoke marijuana.
I think so too.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, it sounds like, and I'm asking, do you have a lot of like input with like Gerry and Brian as far as the story goes?
I think we do. Yeah, it depends on the project. So with some of the projects that I work on with Gerry and Brian, like I'm like second or third in line as far as like what's going on. Like the editor and Brian, or the editor and Gerry have talked about it. Like I'm working on one project with Brian and Joe Troman, the guy who's the lead guitar player on Fall Out Boy, and
nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's a project over at Heavy Metal called The Axe, and they came up with that idea before I came along. So I've just been kind of like, in the design work, and I just pour my heart into the story. But I have very little control over like where they were going with it. But with this one, I had way more control over what was going on. We tried different things. We tried different ways to sort of skin a cat, And there's like, there's the up the belly kind of motion where the writer and the editor are kind of doing it, and then there's kind of what I tried with this one, where like I do blocks of like we would talk about everything, and then I'd kind of just go back and then just do a block of work, and then come back to them and say like, here's what this looks like, and then just hand them notes. And then what's great about the two of them is they're endlessly funny. So like a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the caption boxes and stuff like that are all things that we sat down one day and we just kind of worked out when we talked about it. Like we would just sit down and we would just go through like the first 20 pages and over a period of a couple of hours, and just be like, what happens in this panel, and I tell them what I was thinking, and they'd go like, nah, not funny enough. And then, we would change some things around there. So it was just a real blast. It was really, really fun to do. And I'm hoping that we can do similar things with the next couple, because we have more plans for it. Even this year, stuff will come out in the fall and the winter, hopefully. So
nice.
So yeah, absolutely. Thing was going to be fun.
Definitely looking forward to that. So I have a question. And maybe this has to do with like how much control you have in the artistic process and how a comic's presented. And also, I'll also preface this with, if you don't want us to include this part, that's cool, because I don't know if you're even allowed to talk about it or whatnot. But so I saw the day the comic came out, Image had like tweeted the cover of the comic, but with like one of these like NFT apes, which I thought like just put like the wrong idea out there, in the sense that like this comic had absolutely nothing to do with like that cover. You're not the artist for that cover. That's not your cover. Like the writers had nothing to do with that. And I felt like people immediately saw that, and like that's all they could focus on. And like it almost seemed like anything I saw about the comic was like negative. And that bothered me, because I picked up the comic, I read it, I loved it. And I felt like it's like totally removed from that. And I felt like the focus got removed from the actual comic.
Yeah, I would stick with that feeling. Like, you enjoyed the comic, you really, we're going to put out more things and we're going to keep doing it. I don't, as far as that cover, I don't have any comment at this point. I could go into it, but it just would be a lot of spinning of wheels. Right. And everybody just gets worked up. Like, the more they get worked up, the further away from reality they get. So I'm just kind of like, it's not something I'm interested in talking about.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. No. Yeah. And I honestly figured, and again, even by talking about it was going to take away from the comic. So I didn't want to like focus on that.
Yeah, because I want to focus on the comic. Like we spent months trying to get that thing to be a great story. It's so funny how people get really they get sidetracked. Something will come up and it has nothing to do with anything.
Exactly.
And they get real sidetracked. So it's interesting on that level. But for me, the comic is the most important thing. We've poured our heart and soul into it. I spend a lot of time just at the drawing board for the last 30 years coming up with things to try and make people happy. So that's the angle that I'm coming from on whenever I'm putting out work. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. But
no, that's fair. Totally fair. Totally fair. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot about it.
Oh, it's fun. Like I said, it's fun.
Cool. So let's go past that then. How about it's a book I haven't read, but I wanted to ask you about it. So you did a book called The Many Deaths of Scott Koblish?
I did. Yes. I was very excited. That one's still available on Amazon or anywhere you get your books, Barnes and Noble, that kind of thing. You can pick it up. I did it for Chronicle Books. The origin of that one was I was stressed out at a particular time in my life. And, I would just before I would go to bed, or as I was just drifting off in bed, my body would kind of lock up. There's that moment you have where you can't move, but you're about to fall asleep. So my body would kind of lock up, and I would think, well, maybe this is what death feels like. You can't move, you can't, but your brain is still going.
Yeah,
and
like sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Sleep paralysis. I was like, is this what death is like? And then I would get all freaked out, and then I wouldn't go to sleep. I'd just be like, I was kind of, it was dovetailing in with all these times where I would kind of, I'd get stressed out. I'd walk down the street and it would be a beautiful sunny day, but I'd see a tree limb fall, just some small tree limb. And then I'd get all freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, a bigger tree limb is going to fall on my head and I'm going to get crushed and die. Or I'd drive across a bridge and I'd go oh no, the car's going to spin out of control and I'm going to go off the bridge and die.
Oh God.
And I wasn't smoking any weed to alleviate anxiety, I guess. So I just sort of thought how can I kind of get a control on these particular dark thoughts? And I thought, well, the one thing that I do all day long is I draw. So that's pretty much my answer for everything that I can do. You know what I mean? It's the answer for how do I pay my rent? How do I eat during the week is I draw, and then I paid enough to be able to eat and to live under a roof and stuff like that. So I thought, well, why don't I just try and draw my way out of this problem? So I started drawing little 4-panel comic strips, just for myself. And then I started posting them on social media. And all my friends were getting a real charge out of it. They really enjoyed seeing it. So these things would pop up in their feed and just me dying horribly. At first they were some were sad, some were happy, some were comedic. And I found that I got more response just in general if it was funny. So I sort of leaned into that direction, and it was a real blast. I did more and more and more and more. And then a friend of mine who worked over at Chronicle Books was like, do you want to put this into a book? And I was like, well, I've already got, I think I had 50 or 60 of these things, and I needed 96 in the end. So I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, it's interesting to have an editor on something like that, because my editor would say things like, oh, that death is just, we kind of expected that. And I go, really? Expected me to get chewed up by a propeller off a boat. And I was like, he'd say it's not, if he would send me back to the drawing board, literally. And then I would come back, instead of getting chewed up by the propeller on the boat, I'd get, grabbed by mermaids and romanced by mermaids and then slammed into Davy Jones' locker. And that's how I died. just little fun things like that. So it was a real gas to be able to do that. And yeah, like I say, it's still available out there. Like you can pick up a copy anytime you want. I just signed a whole bunch of copies this past week at the different store signings that I was doing all across LA and Ventura. So it's a fun book. It's a real, like 120 pages or something like that. So it's a big book. It's a lot of fun. It's funny to say that it's a lot of fun because most people are like, wait a minute, it's you dying over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but it's fun. And kids really like it because they do actually like it. The kids that are most curious about it at the conventions I go to are like boys like 8 to like 13 and then like girls like 11 to 15. Like they really kind of like something that's slightly transgressive but funny, like it's like they're probably a little afraid of it if it's in their life at all. Like death is a pretty intense thing to go through. So like, their grandparents might have died or somebody they know might have died or they see it on TV or in movies and they're trying to process it. And, this is just another way to kind of process it. I'm not saying that I'm a genius or anything like that. It's just that I noticed that kids really like it and that the adults kind of like it too. I always tell everyone when they come up to my booth and they pick it up, if they've laughed 3 or 4 times, they have to buy it. So,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Or maybe you need to start slapping on the many, like a sticker underneath that says 4 kids, like the many deaths of Scott Koblish, 4 kids.
Yeah, 4 kids, yeah. And we even, when my wife and I got married, we did a mini comic, the many marriages of Scott and Jill Koblish. Like, we did it was great because we were able to do a whole bunch of like things together. We were like got married on the moon or like, got married in a wrestling rink or, like that kind of thing. And,
nice.
And it was just a lot of fun to do to like make a call back to that kind of thing. So it was really neat. Like I did the drawings and Jill colored them up and then we sent them out as like party favors because we got married during COVID. So
nice.
Everything was kind of locked down and we wanted to make sure that everybody had things, we gave them all hot chocolate and stuff like that. Like,
Nice.
Just to make sure everyone's pretty happy. But yeah, it's a great book. I could probably do another like 3 of those books. It's just a matter of like selling out with the first batch. So
nice.
Yeah.
The fact that you said you could do another 3, like, does that just like feel really like, does it just feel good to constantly just draw yourself dying? Like, does it like literally like, does it?
It does feel good. It's kind of nice. Like, I didn't even get to vampires or werewolves or volcanoes. I was literally thinking about it the other day. I was like, there's a million ways for me to die this way.
It sounds kind of therapeutic, if truth be told.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah, it was very therapeutic. It was funny because I had to try and keep like a narrative out of it, but it just kept creeping in. Like at some point, my daughter was kind of young. When I was doing it, she was like, I want to say like 11 or 12. And she would come in and she would catch me drawing these things, like I'm being hung or like,
Jesus.
She's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, art, like it was
art.
And she did this one thing where she was like, well, why does it have to be you? And I was like, well, because it's not funny if it's somebody else, like, and she like hopped in my lap and she goes, well, it's not funny to me. And I was so like, I immediately sat down and I drew that. And then I had a whole bunch of lumberjack jokes, which was kind of weird. Like, like a guy sawing like a tree and the tree falls on him or something like that. So I just kind of made, like, this never made it into the book, but I made a whole bunch of strips called John Koblish Lumberjack, and then the trees would like kill me each time at the end. But it's kind of abandoned that line of thinking. I just went back to killing me.
Has your daughter inspired you to maybe do the many lives of Scott Koblish?
Well, that'd be interesting. I mean, I kind of have. I feel a little bit like that I have a new lease on life anyway, just because,
Nice.
I got remarried and we live in a different place, and I feel pretty happy with my career and how things have been going. So I really kind of like feel like I get that second shot at another life anyway. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I really, it's like genuinely something that I think about. I'm old enough that I can kind of remember back to different points in my life and where I lived and stuff like that. And this is genuinely the happiest I've ever been. So it's one of those where like, I could see it doing many lives of Scott Koblish,
Nice. Very cool.
I was going to say, I feel like you've probably been asked this before, but is there a character that you haven't worked on yet that you would want to?
Well, that's a great question. I am a giant Legion of Superheroes fan, but I don't think I'll ever get that option. I might try and do something along those lines of science fiction in the future. I have a science fiction story that I kind of want to get to once all this stuff is wrapped up, which I don't know if it'll get wrapped up at all. We keep coming up with new ideas. I worked on so many of them. It's been, almost 30 years of working at Marvel and DC. So I did some Batman stuff within the last 3 years. And it took me a little bit of time to sort of figure out what my Batman would be, but I was kind of happy with it towards the end. There's a ton of characters that I haven't worked on yet. I love Firestorm. I always thought that character was really interesting.
Nice.
And, I do like a lot of the newer characters. I'm kind of curious as to how Marvel handles, in the movies at least, all the America Chavez stuff and the Scarlet Witch's kids and all these things. I would love to draw something along those lines.
Nice.
I've already tackled Captain America and Iron Man and Thor and those kinds of things already. If I were ever to go back to them, I'd try and do something different. I don't really like to do the same sorts of things each time out. And of course, comics have changed over the last however many years. So I don't even know that the stories wouldn't be the same anyway. So I loved working on Deadpool. That was a lot of fun. I would work on Deadpool again, no trouble. Gerry and Brian and I are always standing about ideas, but it's just a matter of time. And I had to turn down some projects recently just because I'm just swamped. I literally am just buried under in things, which is a great place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Who's better to work for, Marvel or DC? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. I just had to say it. It was building inside of me. You don't actually have to answer it.
There's no answer for that.
I like both. I'm a big DC fan. Batman is my favorite. I'm wearing a Green Lantern shirt right now. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Nice.
Oh yeah. It's Parallax.
Got his rings on it. Yeah, it's Parallax when he has the rings.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I love all the characters and all of these. I'm a big fan of stuff that's even just independent. It's a lot of fun.
So I was going to ask that. Do you read comic books, and what are you reading right now, especially if it's independent?
Yeah, it's funny that I have a lot of DC stuff around me nowadays.
Nice.
My wife works over at DC, so I'm surrounded by DC stuff all the time. And so it's interesting to see that kind of stuff. But as far as independent stuff, I've always been a huge fan of Love and Rockets. Jaime Hernandez's stuff is just fantastic. I just love that guy's work so much. He's still, they're both still putting stuff out. I like Lore Olympus over at what is that? Webtoons. That's a fun comic. I really loved Giant Days over at Boom. That was a great book. I like slice of life kind of things. I really like. I used to love Dork, like Evan Dorkin's book for a while back in the aughts, I guess. I love just trying different comics and looking to see different things.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of people that they're good friends of mine that are always putting something fun out. Dan Panosian's putting out some great stuff over at Boom. I really love Cliff Chang's work when he was working on Paper Girls.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much stuff out there that that I really vibe with. I really like the nice lake house on the
the nice house on the lake. Yeah, James Tynion.
The artwork on that is gorgeous, and the writing stellar.
Oh, I've never heard of this one. Nice house on the lake.
Yeah, it's great. It's really neat. We actually we were Jill and I were taking turns reading, and then it got doused in water for some reason. So
That's good.
I think I might have to go and get another trade of it. But so.
Yeah, I just read volume 3 of Department of Truth from James.
Oh, what's that one? Oh, is that another?
Yeah,
that's great. He's a wonderful writer. So yeah.
Oh yeah, he makes cool stuff.
There's so many great writers out there right now. Like I did a short story that Tom King had written,
nice.
A Lobo story that I adored, and like I keep the first page on that one like up above in the kitchen, like we put it little area just because it was a Lobo story, and I had like no time to draw it. I think I had 6 pages of pencil and ink it, so it was an 8-page story.
Oh wow!
But I had so much fun doing it, and there's just some really, really, really inventive and creative writers out there right now. Like, I just love everybody's, they're really at the top of their game. A lot of guys are just swinging for the fences. It's a wonderful time to be a comics fan, honestly, because there's so much stuff out there and so much of it is really great. I think that some of the stories out there right now are just some of the greatest stories like ever. I think everybody's getting a real good sense of what they can do with the field and the industry, and there's all sorts of options and opportunities for everybody to do things. I love it. I think this comics are in a great place right now.
I agree.
Webtoons does all sorts of amazing stuff. There's a ton of like Korea pop shows that come out of Korea that are all Webtoons stories. We were watching Itaewon Class. It's a great story. It's a great show that's on Netflix. You can catch it, and that was originally a comic strip. So,
oh really? Okay.
Yeah, there's a ton of things out there that like you never would know that they're like based on a comic strip. But and then of course, there's a Mobius book that's going to be like a movie. I want to say
the Inkle.
Yeah, Incal, yeah. And that's going to be a movie pretty soon. So like you get these sneaky little like comic strip ideas, you know what I mean? Like you won't think of it as like most people think of comic book stuff as Iron Man or Captain America or something like that, but you'll get like a ghost world that pops up where it's like it's kind of like it's a movie that everybody really kind of likes, but it's not, and it's based on a comic, but nobody would really know. The Ghost World is a comic book movie, or like it's just interesting to see like things that sort of pop around and then become a movie. Red, there was I think it's called Red. It was
Red,
yeah.
That was a comic book movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's a movie called The Kitchen that was a Vertigo book for a while.
Oh, nice. History of Violence.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, History of Violence. Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see like things kind of come to the popular culture like through comics, but like through a backdoor kind of way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love The Boys. I can't wait.
Oh, The Boys is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Umbrella Academy is awesome. The show I think is better than the comic, The Umbrella Academy. So I'm really excited to have that come back.
I like Umbrella Academy a lot. That was a cool show.
Great. It's a great show.
We really like Sweet Tooth. That was a show that like
wasn't that great? It was a really sweet little show.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was very endearing, honestly.
Yeah,
no pun intended with the
apocalyptic stories go. It was very endearing.
Yeah. Do you read any like Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips?
Oh my God, Ed Brubaker is so intense. I kind of have to. I kind of have to be in a mood to partake in their stuff. It affects my mood, like it really does. Like I get so drawn into it that like I really wind up kind of in a weird headspace after I've read their work. So, like the answer is like it's almost too intense for me, really. Like
Yeah.
I loved. There was one that they did where it was the Archie gang. It was the kids from Archie, but all grown up, and then just murder people. Yeah, it was great. I don't think they could say it was the Archie gang, you know what I mean? But it was
That's
clearly
crazy.
Veronica and Archie, and
I gotta read that.
It's so great. It's really neat, and it's a Brubaker and Phillips thing. That one blew my head off. I freaking loved it so much.
Yeah,
Great. The true crime stuff is amazing, and then of course they dive into all the stuff in LA, different periods.
That's what I was telling someone. I was like, a lot of their books all deal with like LA's underbelly, whether it be like Hollywood underbelly or like more than a few comics, they hint at like the Bohemian Grove or just like satanic hippie 70s, 60s California ritual stuff, Charles Manson type of stuff.
Yes.
They love that world, especially in LA. They love going into that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I used to live in New York, and everybody in New York was like, "Oh, well, LA has no culture." That was always the rap that they had, but it's not true. It's just that the culture is not. It's like the mainstream culture, and it's like not the mainstream culture. Like people come out here thinking that the movies are kind of what the town is all about, but it's not. Like the town is like the LA is like 500 years old. You know what I mean? It's a city that literally has like roots all the way back to the Spanish occupation.
Yeah.
And the culture and the people, like when this became a state, 170 years ago, like everybody who had been here during the Spanish occupation and the Native American population here, they were just here. Like they were just still here. Like it wasn't like suddenly it was like, just like a whole bunch of white dudes like in like the colonies and like England. I mean, the culture here has a lot to do with like the local Latino population, the local Asian population. It's overlaid with the Hollywood kind of stuff. So it's really fascinating. You just have to open yourself up to it and not expect that it's going to be easily accessible. Because in New York, everything's easily accessible. Like everybody wants to be in their tiny cramped apartment. So out they go. They're like involved in everything. It's kind of like there's no real secret things. But here in LA, there's all these little secret parties. There's all these little secret kind of like alcoves, and you find yourself in a different spot in LA, and you're like, I didn't even know this part of the town existed. Like, where are we? I'd get friends of mine would pick me up and we would drive like an hour somewhere, still in LA, but like, we'd have it would be like at some weird hacienda in the middle of nowhere. Where are we? But I guess we're here in LA. It's just spread out and secretive,
A buddy of mine just took me to an area of LA I've never been to over the weekend, and it blew my mind to see. South Central, but off of Figueroa in like the 80s and 60s.
Oh wow! Okay. Absolutely.
Being a huge fan of like the Wire and David Simon and everything, it was an open air prostitution market, hundreds of prostitutes. Shit. I mean, it was, it blew my mind. Like hundreds, no exaggeration. I would turn down blocks like to look, and there'd be like 50 or 60, and it was so big and it expanded at least 20 blocks. And I was like, well, the cops have to just turn a blind eye because you can't not notice it.
Yeah, if it's like that. Wow, no kidding, really. That's
really it was cool just to drive through because my friend was like, "Yo, have you ever been to the Ho Stroll?" And I was like, "What is the Ho Stroll?" He's like, "Dude, like, let's go! Like, it's insane to look at." And it was really mind blowing.
So like Figueroa in like in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
during the day or night or
no, we went at like 11:30 p.m.
Yeah, interesting.
So then the car traffic for these blocks, I told him, I was like, dude, have you ever like on Christmas, like, in certain neighborhoods do up all their houses and there's a lot of traffic to go see the houses? It was like that, like no bullshit. There were a line of cars and I was like, dude, like the cops, I was just amazed that like this clearly is like allowed,
because
you can't not notice it and then bust. You would arrest like hundreds of people in one night.
Absolutely.
So it was weird to see. I was like, this must just be like, people just turn a blind eye to it.
That's the thing. LA just has all these little secret surprises that you won't be in that neighborhood, or you'll be in that neighborhood like at a different time of the day or something like that. And like my wife goes down, there's a forge, like a blacksmithing forge. Like during the day, it's completely different. And during a night, it's also completely different. You know what I mean? Like the neighborhood changes like overnight. So it's just fascinating. And then there's all these like little theaters everywhere. And, like I would go to, she used to work in comedy. So like, we go to all these little comedy like clubs that are essentially like someone's house,
or like little black box theaters.
Yeah, or little black box theaters. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't think of anything of it. You'd think it's just an abandoned theater during the day.
They do look abandoned. A lot of them literally look abandoned, and they're all in use.
Yeah, I'm like spruce it up a little bit, but they all look like completely abandoned, but they come to life at night, and it's just fascinating to see. It's just spread out, and it's just like kind of invite only. Like someone has to know somebody who went to a thing to go like, oh, there's a thing there,
Yeah.
So I remember one of the first parties I ever went to in LA, like I don't even know where it was. It was in sort of the mid-city district, and it was a big warehouse, no windows whatsoever, just a green light above like a door, and some dude standing there. And we went in, and it was like a multi-level kind of like bar with like crushed velvet seats and like beautiful like interiors, and like I was just like, I can't wrap my head around the fact that this place is what it looks like on the inside, So, but coming from New York, everything was all obvious, like you walk past, like all the theaters that are open, and it's a walking town, it's kind of like Chicago, you can walk around.
Yeah.
But LA, you have to drive everywhere. So.
It's true.
I don't know. That's our LA minute.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Anthony.
Yeah, it sounds so mystifying. I'm like, I'll get lost if I step foot in LA. I've got to stay in the city.
But pleasantly so. You'll get lost in a good way.
Yeah, I've actually never been to LA, so only.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've only been to California once. I went to San Francisco, but not LA.
San Francisco's pretty nice too. I like traveling, like when I can. Like that's the great thing about comic books that I didn't expect. I thought I'd be sitting in my drawing board all day long, and I do. But I get invited to different conventions all over the world. So I was in Argentina and in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore and Sweden and the Netherlands and France and Germany and Italy. So you just get invited to different things, and it's fun. It's really fascinating to be able to do it. I'm kind of hoping the world opens up sooner or later.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, so do you do like do you draw for people at conventions ever, or is that some? Oh, you like?
Yeah, like I'm doing a convention in Spokane in Washington State in the first weekend in June, and that's what I do. I'll sit down and I'll say like, anybody who wants a sketch, this is how much I'm charging. And, I usually try and give like a good price where people can buy it, and then I'll do a sketch sometimes while they're there, while I'm talking to them. Sometimes I'll have to take it to the hotel room, but I'll do sketches. I'll sell comics. Sometimes I'll sell prints of things. So it's just great. I love doing what I do. It's comic books are just amazing. It's a real fun way to tell a story. It's a real fun use of my time and drawing, and I just love doing it. So yeah.
And I love that this comic, the Secret History of the War on Weed, that it exists. Like it exists in the same medium as all the comics we've been talking about. Like that's just cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. You can tell any kind of story. It's people kind of confuse the message with the medium. Like, so they'll say like, you'll be talking to somebody about comic books and all they can think of is superheroes. And I did most of my work in superheroes. So when you talk about anything out of the superhero realm, they don't quite understand what it is that I'm talking about. But it's kind of like movies, not all movies are superhero movies. A lot of them are now, but I think it's really great. I'm excited to see like all the things that come down the pike. I'm really looking forward to the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And the Secret History of the War on Weed it's a blast. It was really fun to draw. So we have other things coming out too. Like Gerry and I have a project that's probably going to come out through Substack, but it's kind of rated R. It's not for the wee ones. It's not for kids.
This is a G-rated podcast, so I don't know.
Is it? Yeah. Good.
No, definitely not. Definitely, it's.
Well, then maybe everyone will be excited about it. But we're going to announce it in a little while. I have to finish it up. And the Axe stuff that I do over at Heavy Metal with Brian and Joe Troman, that's definitely rated R. There's a lot of boobs and penises.
Nice. We love boobs too.
Yeah, if you like boobs, you'll love. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I've been branching out and doing different things. I did superhero comics for so long. And I love talking in that vein, you know what I mean? Like I love drawing, that kind of stuff. I love action. I love drama. So I'll always wind up doing some superhero thing of some sort or some science fiction kind of thing. But I like branching now. I like the way that things go when I've been branching out. So.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, shit. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Seriously.
Of course. It's been a real gas. You guys are fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. We really appreciate it. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Seriously. I'm seriously glad we set a day. We did it.
Yeah, that's great.
Good. This was a good talk.
Absolutely. And if anybody's interested in picking up The Secret History of the War on Weed, they can go down to their local comic book shop and ask for it by name. Most likely they'll have it. If they don't, they can order it. And if you can't get it this time out, we're going to do some more things with it, and then hopefully put out like a collection of things. So
nice.
So yeah, we're having a blast doing it. So and it's really great. I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice to be able to do create our own projects and keep that stuff rolling. So
nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know what I just realized? I was talking about having 2 copies. I think we should give one of the copies away for this episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
So if someone can't find it,
we'll give it away.
So we're going to do a giveaway for this episode. So if you're listening, check out for that, because someone's going to have a copy of this comic.
Good. I like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Alrighty. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jacob H.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.